Good evening. You're watching the News at 6 with me, Shan Russell. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories, and we'll be filling you in on them over the next half hour. But first, the headlines that we're tracking right now. In his maiden policy announcement, RBI Governor Urjit Patel endorses a rate cut of 0.25%. Sensex rises by 91 points to close at over 28,334. India and Singapore hold comprehensive talks on trade and investment. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his counterpart Lee Hsien Loong agree to strengthen cooperation in countering terrorism. A day after Karnataka releases Kaveri River water for irrigation to help farmers save their standing crop, Supreme Court directs Karnataka to release 2,000 cusecs of water per day to Tamil Nadu. And after BCCI threatens to call off ongoing series between India and New Zealand, Justice R.M. Lodha panel clarifies that it has not directed banks to freeze the board's accounts. Our top story this evening, Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong met Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi on Tuesday. Both leaders held comprehensive talks on a number of issues, including ways to enhance cooperation in trade and investment. They also agreed to strengthen cooperation in countering terrorism.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi held summit-level talks with his Singaporean counterpart Lee Hsien Loong on Tuesday. India and Singapore signed 3 MOUs aimed at utilizing the technical and managerial potential of Singapore. 2 of the pacts are aimed at collaborating on technical and vocational education, while the third one deals with intellectual property rights to facilitate greater business-to-business exchanges and collaborations.
Thank you, Excellency.
Prime Minister Lee and I also welcome the issuance of corporate rupee bonds in Singapore. It is a step forward in our effort to mobilize capital for India's large infrastructure development needs.
We discussed how India and Singapore can deepen our financial cooperation, and we agreed to appoint senior ministers on both sides. In Singapore's case, DPM Tharman Shanmugaratnam, and in India's case, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, to discuss how we can come up with new and innovative ways to cooperate.
The Prime Ministers of both countries agreed that defence and security cooperation is a key pillar of strategic partnership between India and Singapore. And that's why, as maritime nations, both sides agreed to keep the sea lanes of communication open.
As two maritime nations, keeping the sea lanes of communication open and respect for international legal order of seas and oceans is a shared priority. Our cooperation in the framework of ASEAN East Asia Summit and the ASEAN Regional Framework is aimed at building an open and inclusive architecture for regional cooperation in an atmosphere of trust and confidence.
The issue of terrorism, particularly cross-border terrorism, figured prominently in the talks.
Rising tide of terrorism, especially cross-border terrorism, and the rise of radicalization are grave challenges to our security. They threaten the very fabric of our societies. It is my firm belief that those who believe in peace and humanity need to stand and act together against this menace.
I express my condolences to the Indian government and the families of the victims of the Uri attack. Singapore strongly condemns terrorist attacks of all forms.
The Singaporean Prime Minister is on a 5-day visit to India, during which he will also visit Rajasthan on the 5th and 6th of October.
Singapore is significant for India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself has visited twice in last 2 years to Singapore. It will be interesting to see that how geographically smaller Singapore can synergize with geographically big India. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Television with camera person Junaid in Delhi.
Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe also arrived on Tuesday on a three-day visit to India. During his stay, the Lankan Prime Minister is scheduled to hold talks with the top leadership, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He will also hold meetings with External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari and Minister of State for Petroleum and Natural Gas Dharmendra Pradhan. On Wednesday, the Lankan PM is expected to call on President Pranab Mukherjee. On Thursday, he will attend the opening plenary of the India Economic Summit before departing for Colombo. The visit by the Sri Lankan Prime Minister assumes significance as it comes just days after India, along with several other countries, pulled out of the SAARC summit scheduled to be held in Islamabad next month. Sri Lanka supported India in its decision, saying the environment was not conducive for the summit to take place. Now, Pakistan continued to violate ceasefire across the line of control, indulging in cross-border firing 5 times on Tuesday. As the situation on the border remains tense, Home Minister Rajnath Singh visited the Kargil War Memorial in the Dras sector in a bid to calm frayed nerves.
As Home Minister Rajnath Singh paid tributes to martyrs at the Kargil War Memorial in Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistani troops continued to violate the ceasefire along the line of control. Ceasefire has been violated at least 5 times by Pakistan over the last 4 hours in Nowshera sector.
The ceasefire violation has taken place in Nowshera sector and at 3 places. It started at 5 in the morning and at 2 locations it has stopped and at 1 location it is still continuing. No, there are no reports of any casualty as of now and we are responding appropriately and giving a very befitting reply to the Pakistani unprovoked ceasefire violation.
Pakistani troops have been firing mortar bombs, automatic weapons and small arms along the LOC, forcing villagers to live on the edge under constant fear, take refuge in the bushes or hide inside their homes.
बहुत फायरिंग हो रही है रात से सुबह 24 घंटे से फायरिंग हो रही है पाकिस्तान वाले लोग हैं ना जो उन्होंने 5 बार इधर गोलाबारी की है सभी डरे हुए हैं अंदर छुपे हुए हैं बच्चे भी रो रहे हैं तो बहुत परेशानी हो रही है
हमारा जो अभी तक एग्रीकल्चर का सीज़न चल रहा है कल्टीवेशन चल रही है मक्की और हमारी खेती की तो उस कारण लोग बहुत ज़्यादा डिस्टर्ब हैं और छुपे हुए हैं सुबह से कहीं ना कहीं कोई अभी बैंकर की फैसिलिटी तो है नहीं है ना ही कोई सही ढंग से बैंकर है और अभी जो माइग्रेशन की प्लानिंग है वो भी अभी अधूरी है
However, state authorities claim to have given adequate help and bunkers to villagers for hiding.
LC फॉरवर्ड एरिया में फायरिंग चल रही है और उसमें हमने तो पूरी तैयारियां कर ली हुई हैं अगर सिविलियन एरिया में थोड़ी सी भी आती है तो हम एहतियातन के तौर पे हम अपने बॉर्डर विलेजेस पे जितने भी हमारे विलेजेस हैं वहाँ से हम लोगों को वहाँ से प्लान करवा देंगे और सेफ़ एरियाज़ में हमने रिहायशी कैंप्स बना के रखे हुए हैं और उसमें हमने पूरी व्यवस्था करके रखी है बिजली पानी राशन वगैरह और किसी भी किस्म की परेशानी नहीं आने दी जाएगी
This at a time when the Home Minister's visit to Dras is supposed to bring back a sense of peace and stability to the valley. Singh reviewed the security situation in the state, with state government officials in tow briefing him on the prevailing law and order situation.
Political parties के delegations मिले, वहीं पर different social, cultural, traders और religious organizations के लोग भी यहाँ पर मिले हैं और लोगों ने इस कारगिल के डेवलपमेंट को लेकर चिंता व्यक्त की है और उसका पूरी तरह से कॉग्निजेंस हम लोगों ने लिया है और जाकर संबंधित जिन मंत्रालयों से संबंधित काम है उन मंत्रालयों को हम रिफर करेंगे आवश्यकता पड़ी तो संबंधित मंत्री से भी बात करेंगे
The Home Minister also rubbished demands of proof of last week's surgical strikes carried out by the Indian Army.
यकीन दिलाना चाहता हूं देशवासियों को कि इस देश के मान सम्मान पर आंच नहीं आने देंगे और देश का मस्तक किसी भी सूरत में झुकने नहीं देंगे
Meanwhile, the body of BSF Jawan Nitin Kumar, who lost his life during Monday's terror attack on his camp in Baramulla, was brought to his hometown Etawah for his last rites. As his family mourned the death, villagers gathered in large numbers to pay their last tributes to Kumar. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And the Kashmir Valley remained shut for the 88th day today, even as state authorities deployed security forces in Srinagar and other district headquarters. Separatists have been issuing weekly protest calendars calling for shutdowns, rallies and marches since July 9th, a day after militant leader Burhan Wani was killed in a gunfight with the police and army. Schools and colleges and universities remained shut, as did the main markets, public transport and other businesses. Train services between the valley and Banihal town in the Jammu region were also suspended. Security was intensified for the Jammu and Kashmir Education Minister Naeem Akhtar, who was warned by the Lashkar-e-Toiba outfit to refrain from opening the educational institutions. The Border Security Force on Tuesday disclosed that Pakistan has intensified snooping on the Indian Armed Forces along the international border. BSF Director General KK Sharma affirmed that an unmanned aerial vehicle movement has been spotted very close to the Indo-Pak border in the recent past.
Amid increasing tensions in the wake of the surgical strikes by India, the Border Security Force is stepping up security on the western border. But BSF Director General KK Sharma confirmed they haven't ordered evacuation of villagers living along the international border.
जो लोग चले गए थे वो भी जहाँ तक मुझे जानकारी आ रही है, they are coming back. तो इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री पे टेंशन जरूर है, लेकिन अभी तक कोई अप्रिय घटना या कोई एक्सचेंज ऑफ फायर नहीं हुआ.
The DGBSF also denied reports of any friendly fire resulting in casualties in the terror attack on the Baramulla camp.
सजगता बढ़ाई गई है, इसमें कोई शक नहीं.
The Director General level biannual border dialogue between India and Bangladesh also concluded on Tuesday. In order to check infiltration, the border force also reviewed preparedness of the security mechanism along the eastern front.
दोनों फोर्सेस पूरी तरह से मुस्तैद हैं, तैनात हैं और किसी भी तरह की उस कोशिश को कि मिलिटेंट्स को बांग्लादेश के रास्ते इन्फिल्ट्रेट कराया जाए, उसको कामयाब नहीं होने दिया जाएगा, इसकी हम आपको एश्योरेंस देते हैं.
We can say both BGB and BSF we are having sincere efforts and say intention to prevent any such kind of infiltration.
The BSF also confirmed a stone pelting incident near the Wagah border during the beating retreat ceremony held on 2nd October. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Time for us to take a short break. Lots more on the other side. Do stay tuned.
The splendid, grand and massive neo-Buddhist copper dome of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. It gets its influence from stupa at Sanchi. The dome is more than twice the height of the rest of the building. The reinforced concrete shell of the outer dome began to be formed during the beginning of 1929. The last stone of the dome was laid on April 6, 1929. Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Amritanshu Rai. You're watching Constitutionally Yours.
When we talk of development, we have to put people first.
These are entities which can be sued,
How, in your opinion, will the goods and services tax, if implemented in the state of Meghalaya, affect the agriculture of the state?
The GST bill passed by the Parliament also has to be ratified by the state legislatures.
Watch Constitutionally Yours on Rajya Sabha television. Tales that inspire. Stories of social change. A salute to diversity. Promoting public discourse. Events that motivate. Inspiring the innovative spirit. Watch Rajya Sabha television documentaries.
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Now, the RBI Monetary Policy panel slashed interest rates by 25 basis points on Tuesday. Softening inflation seems to have prodded the RBI to lower the repo rate to a 6-year low at 6.25%. It also exuded confidence on meeting the inflation target of 2 to 6% in the current fiscal year.
Some festival cheer is in the offing, with the RBI signalling a possible cut in your housing and car loans. In his maiden announcement, RBI Governor Urjit Patel slashed repo rate by 25 basis points to 6.25% from 6.5%. All 6 members of the newly constituted Monetary Policy panel voted in favour of the rate cut. The reverse repo rate also came down to 5.75%. In RBI's fourth bi-monthly policy meet, Patel voiced concern over the swelling NPAs of the banks, while underscoring the need for a determined effort to remedy it. Patel also affirmed that only 5 sectors contribute 61% of stressed assets of the banking sector.
Our discussions were frank, often intense, but always friendly. We allowed each other to speak, and we ensured that there is no rancor, and that at the end of the day, we agreed on an MPC resolution that we have placed before the country.
The RBI also asked banks to pass the benefit of falling interest rates to consumers. The latest repo rate cut has caused a cumulative 175 basis points drop since January 2015, but banks have cut loan rates by only 70 to 80 basis points.
They have reduced the rates much lesser than 1.25%. The average which has been indicated in that report is about 0.5%.
Cheering the RBI's decision, the Sensex rose to 91.26 points to close at 28,334, while Nifty gained 31.05 points to close at 8,769. The RBI has pegged gross value added growth of 7.6% for the current fiscal and 7.9% for the next year. It, however, has warned of risks on growth due to muted private investment, weak global demand and geopolitical risks. Reporting from Delhi, with camera person Manish Bhalla, I'm Kriti Mishra for Rajya Sabha Television.
Now, the Supreme Court on Tuesday ordered Karnataka to release 2,000 cusecs of water to Tamil Nadu. The court has ordered the release of water daily from the 7th of October to the 18th of October. Meanwhile, AIADMK MPs submitted a memorandum to Prime Minister Narendra Modi appealing him to intervene over the Kaveri issue.
A day after Karnataka government released around 9,000 cusecs of water for irrigation to Tamil Nadu, the Supreme Court on Tuesday ordered it once again to release 2,000 cusecs of water per day to the state from 7th to 18th October. The court also said the chairman of Central Water Committee will lead a team to survey ground realities and submit a report by 18th October, the next date of hearing.
अभी आगे ये डायरेक्शन दिया है कि टेक्निकल कमेटी जाएगी, जो सुपरवाइजरी कमेटी का एक भाग है, एक तरीके का भाग है, और वो ग्राउंड रियलिटी देखकर कोर्ट को रिपोर्ट करेगी और फाइनल सुनवाई जो है 18 अक्टूबर के लिए तय हो गई। उसके बाद 3 जज बेंच ये सारे विषयों को सुनेगा और डिसाइड करेगा कि किसकी दायित्व है, किसकी ड्यूटी है।
Even as the top court pulled up the Karnataka government for its defiance, the State Assembly passed a resolution that the state will release water to farmers in the Kaveri Basin. Meanwhile, a delegation of AIADMK MPs met Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Delhi to seek his intervention on the issue. They also asked the centre to withdraw its application in the Supreme Court, seeking modification of order on constituting the Kaveri Board.
We people, on behalf of our MPs, went to Prime Minister's office, handed over the memorandum. See that the Kaveri management will be constituted quickly. We requested the Prime Minister to intervene in the issue and see that Kaveri management will be constituted immediately as per the direction of the Supreme Court.
On September 30th, the Supreme Court asked the centre to set up the board by October 4th. Its members were to travel to both Tamil Nadu and Karnataka to assess their needs. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more national news updates now nationwide. 3 passengers were injured as 10 coaches of the Jammu Tawi-Pune Jhelum Express derailed near the Satluj River in Jalandhar district early today. The injured people were taken to the civil hospital in Ludhiana. The accident took place at around 3:10 in the morning between Philor and Ladowal stations of Jalandhar-Ludhiana section of the Firozpur division. The Haji Ali Dargah Trust on Monday approached the Supreme Court to challenge the Bombay High Court verdict that recently allowed the entry of women into the inner sanctum sanctorum of the renowned Muslim shrine. Earlier on the 26th of August, the Bombay High Court lifted the ban imposed on women from entering the inner sanctum of Mumbai's Haji Ali Dargah. Bombay High Court had also asked the state to ensure safety and security of women entering the inner sanctum of the Haji Ali. The Spectrum auction entered the 15th round on day 3 with the bidding hitting over the 100% activity level, but there is still no demand for the premium 700 MHz and 900 MHz bands. According to sources, the bidding activity has touched the 100% level. Sources say the bidding interest continues to be largely around the 1800 MHz and the 2300 MHz that can be used by operators to provide 4G services. As Maharashtra's former Deputy Chief Minister and Senior Nationalist Congress Party leader Chhagan Bhujbal marked almost 7 months in custody, around 20 lakh supporters from all over India took to the streets of Nashik on Monday to seek his release. Earlier on 14th March, Bhujbal was arrested in connection with several cases pertaining to alleged corruption, money laundering and land deals and has remained in custody since. Time for some sports now, and with the BCCI threatening to call off the ongoing series between India and New Zealand, the Justice R.M. Lodha panel today clarified that it did not direct banks to freeze the accounts of the board. The panel said that they directed the BCCI not to disburse funds to state associations. The BCCI in turn says the state associations depend on the board for organising matches and that preparations were being affected.
The tussle between India's cricket governing body BCCI and the Supreme Court appointed Lodha committee has intensified, with the BCCI threatening to call off the ongoing series between India and New Zealand. The threat came following the Lodha panel directing the banks holding BCCI accounts to not disperse large funds to state associations. However, the Justice R.M. Lodha-led panel clarified that they did not direct the banks to freeze the accounts and that the board can carry on with its routine expenses.
There is no question of cancellation of any game or series. The directive which we issued to BCCI yesterday in our email is confined to disbursement of large funds to the state associations, and banks have been directed to ensure compliance of that. Nothing beyond that. Routine expenses for matches, games, cricketing activities and other administrative matters, they are not at all restrained. There is absolutely no prohibition. There is no constraint. The accounts of BCCI have not been frozen.
An upset BCCI, however, retorted that the board's reputation was ruined by the freezing of its bank accounts and raised a question mark on whether it was able enough to run cricket activities in the country. BCCI also argued that state associations were dependent on the parent body for organising matches and were unable to carry on their functioning in the wake of the latest directive from the Lodha panel.
I would like to inform the committee members, it is not the BCCI who hosts the matches, it is the state associations who organizes the matches for the Indian cricket. If they are not being paid, can they host matches in India? And why this money is being stopped? This money belongs to the state associations. If they are not being paid, how can they run cricket?
The BCCI has a long-running battle with the Supreme Court appointed panel, which has recommended sweeping changes to bring more transparency and accountability to the board's functioning. However, despite constant warnings by the panel, the BCCI has ignored several important recommendations. Last week, the Apex Court warned the board to fall in line or face the consequences. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more sports action now in Sports Beat. The verdict in the Maria Sharapova appeal against a 2-year doping ban has been announced by the Court of Arbitration for Sport later today. The 5-time Grand Slam winner was banned by the International Tennis Federation in June following a positive test for the banned drug during January's Australian Open. The Russian, who said she'd been taking the drug since 2006 for health problems, has appealed against the ban. Rafael Nadal eased into the second round of the China Open with a 6-1, 6-1 victory over Italy's Paolo Lorenzi. Second seed Nadal will next face either compatriot Albert Ramos Vinolas or French qualifier Adrian Manarino. British top seed Andy Murray also advanced to the second round with 6-2, 7-5 win over Andrea Seppi. FIFA President Gianni Infantino has proposed expanding the World Cup finals to 48 teams. Infantino suggested that 16 of these teams could be eliminated just after one knockout match, and the remainder of the tournament would be played in the current format with the 32-team group stage, followed by a knockout phase. Some international news now, and the US is suspending talks with Russia over Syria, accusing Moscow of having failed to live up to its commitments under a ceasefire deal. Washington blamed Russia and the Syrian government for intensifying their attacks against civilians. The US had warned last week of halting the talks unless Moscow stops bombing the city of Aleppo. Meanwhile, Russia said it regretted the US move, accusing it of shifting the blame for the collapse of the last month's truce. Aleppo has come under heavy aerial bombardment since the end of the ceasefire 2 weeks ago. The failure of the US-Russian talks on Syria suggests there is little hope of a diplomatic solution emerging anytime soon to end the 5.5-year-old civil war that has killed hundreds of thousands and displaced over 11 million people.
Well, I think what is clear is the Obama administration has concluded that Russia has no intention of living up to the commitments that they've made in the context of negotiations around a cessation of hostilities. And once you've reached that conclusion, I'm not really sure what else there is to talk about. And again, I'm not papering over the tragic consequences that this is going to have for Syria. This was a reasonable, thought-through strategy for applying pressure to the Assad regime in pursuit of the aims that we were seeking to achieve. We're going to have to pursue an alternative approach.
The pound sterling tumbled to a 31-year low on Tuesday, hours after the UK government set a timetable for negotiations to leave the European Union, affecting the currency's recent stability. The currency fell as much as 0.8%, taking its decline this week to more than 1.6% at the low point of the session. The fall follows Prime Minister Theresa May's announcement that Brexit talks will begin early next year, which sent jitters through investors who pointed to a so-called hard Brexit that prioritizes Britain's control of immigration policy over full access to Europe's single markets.
As we negotiate our exit from the EU and our future relationship with it, this government will fight for the best possible deal for British business and British workers, the best possible access to European markets for our manufacturing and services industries, and the best possible freedoms for our entrepreneurs and our global exporters, ensuring that Britain, after Brexit, will remain one of the best places in the world for a business to invest, to innovate and to grow.
It's in that uncertainty effect on the British economy since the vote. But the worry is that really once that Article 50 gets triggered, which we now know will be sometime before March next year, that's when companies really start to pull back on their investment plans, and that's what could start to weigh on economic growth and even usher in some sort of recession.
That's all from us. Goodbye.